Good evening, everyone. This is Erin O'Toole, leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. I'm so pleased to welcome you to our telephone town hall tonight. We're also live on Facebook and YouTube. Tonight, we're talking with people across Atlantic Canada about Canada's recovery plan, our plan to get Canada's economy back on track and get Canadians back to their lives, jobs, and dreams. You'll have a chance in this telephone town hall to ask me any question about the election, and especially any question about Canada's recovery plan. If you have a question for me, please press *3 now. Or if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, use the comments to ask your question. I'm really proud to be talking with you tonight about our plan. I know that you may not hear a lot from politicians during this election, maybe not even from Conservative politicians. I understand that for years you've been let down by the Liberals, and Mr. Trudeau in particular. But really, if we're being honest, you've been let down by parties of all stripes in the past, and at times including ours. I want to say up front that I know my party has some ground to make up. So I'm here to listen to you. I want to know your thoughts, your hopes, your fears, your aspirations. And I hope at the end of this conversation, even if you're uncertain about your vote, you will look at Canada's Conservatives in a new way, and you'll certainly look into our plan a little bit more. I've come here to talk to you about our plans to lift up, rebuild, and rejuvenate our country. And I hope today that I can persuade you that this plan will help the towns, villages, and cities across Atlantic Canada. I know that far too much focus in our country often focuses elsewhere, often in the big cities. But out here in Atlantic Canada, there's people that give their passion to this country. And I want you to know it's a very special part of the country for me. My years living in Halifax were some of the best in my life, in both the military, serving alongside great Canadians, meeting my wife in Nova Scotia, and going to law school. Every day, I would know when I was in the military, I was waking up doing something that was going to make a difference. We were helping patrol our fisheries and our waters off Newfoundland, Labrador. We helped with search and rescue, ships in trouble, all part of the Royal Canadian Air Force's efforts alongside the Navy, which I had the honor of sailing with out of Halifax. Being part of the people, the culture, and the vibe of Atlantic Canada made me a better Canadian. I knew that time is going to be with me as a parliamentarian. So serving my country was about one of the best things about being in Halifax. But the most important thing was meeting my wife, Rebecca, during that service. Rebecca's from Fall River, Nova Scotia, and never ceases to remind me that Atlantic Canada is truly where our family is from. And even the kids kind of think they're from there, even though they were born in Ontario. It's a different approach that we want to bring to you by talking to you directly through this telephone town hall, because we can't get to every town and community, particularly in a pandemic. But I want you to know that we're here and we want to take your questions, because every part of this country is important. And every part of this country is facing skyrocketing housing prices, a cost of living crisis, and challenges with chronically underfunded healthcare from the federal perspective. It's about time we had a Prime Minister who actually understands the challenges facing communities in all parts of this country. And I know what it's like to learn, serve, and work in Atlantic Canada. So I'm asking today for your trust, to be your voice in Ottawa, because 4 weeks ago, Mr. Trudeau broke his promise, yet the latest one he broke, when he called an election in a pandemic after having promised not to. He's asking for a majority, but rather than presenting any vision or optimism for the country over the last few weeks, Mr. Trudeau has engaged in a campaign of scaremongering and information, negative American-style divisive politics that really should have no place in Canada. Canadians deserve better. Right from the start of this campaign, we launched our plan, Canada's Recovery Plan, and the sole focus of our plan is getting our country back on track. The 5 pillars of our plan: 1 million jobs in 1 year, accountability by introducing tough new anti-corruption laws, showing mental health leadership for a country needing that after the pandemic, make sure our country's more prepared in the future, and getting our economy back on track by balancing the budget over the next decade. But it's also a plan to focus on challenges across the country: unemployment, a lack of support for highly affected sectors, seasonal work, and challenges facing the strain on our healthcare system. Canada's Conservatives have heard you, we get it, and now Canada's Conservatives are asking for your trust so that we can secure the future for all families across Atlantic Canada and across the country. And I want you to know we're here to earn your vote tonight. So as I said, hit *3 now if you have a question or comment, or use the comments on Facebook or YouTube to ask a question. And I'm so proud to have a proud Atlantic Canadian as our moderator, a friend, someone who's served her country so honorably, the Honorable Lisa Raitt. Take it away, Lisa.
Oh, thank you very much, Aaron. And you know what? When Rebecca says that the kids are Atlantic Canadians, that's kind of how I feel too. My kids were born in Ontario, but they certainly think that they're Cape Bretoners. And the fact that all of their vacations for their entire lives have been about making the pilgrimage back home. They wonder sometimes, you know, why didn't we go to Disney World? I said, what, the Cabot Trail's not good enough for you? Come on, this is the kind of stuff that is important. It's making sure that they understand their roots. And I know that you and Rebecca have done exactly the same for Molly and Jack. As Aaron pointed out, I am Lisa Raitt, formerly of Whitney Pier, Nova Scotia, currently living here in Ontario, and I sneak back once in a while home just to visit my family and make sure that I get to see my friends as well. I support Erin O'Toole and I support his vision for Canada, and I'm so proud to be part of this team bringing this Teletown Hall to you tonight. Now, Aaron was raised in the community of Bowmanville in Ontario, and he had the same kind of values that we grew up with here in Atlantic Canada: hard work and help your neighbor. Before he started in politics, he served our country in the Royal Canadian Air Force for 12 years, sailing with the Atlantic Navy. He stands up for hardworking Canadians. He wants to work for you. He's a parent of 2, and he wants to make sure that for generations to come, Canadians can grow up with access to good jobs, affordable homes, and a thriving economy, and not part of that world, which a lot of us have gone through, which is having to move away for a job. The Teletown Hall is about to start, so please press *3 to ask Aaron a question, or comment below if you're watching on Facebook. If you have a question, it's *3, and I'm the one that's going to be putting the questions to Aaron. And I'm delighted to see that we already have lots of questions rolling in already, Aaron, I have to tell you. But I'm going to start off with one of my own, if I may. I'm wondering, Aaron, if you mentioned mental health. And, you know, there's a lot of really angry people in Canada right now because of the mental health issues associated with the pandemic. And it's really tough, and we're struggling, and it's hard to get access to services. What's in your plan when it comes to mental health?
Well, thanks, Lisa. And since you've been in politics and out, you've also advocated for families, including families dealing with folks with Alzheimer's and other challenges. So thank you for your continued leadership. Our country needs a plan for its economic wellness, and that's in our plan. But we need families and communities to be well. And you've read the headlines: depression rates up throughout the pandemic, eating disorders in teenagers alarmingly up, domestic violence, addiction. There are a range of after impacts of the pandemic that we need to tackle. So the third pillar of our Canada Recovery Plan is on national leadership on mental health. So we're making a record generational investment in our public healthcare system, up to almost $60 billion over 10 years, predictable long-term funding that the provinces are offering. And we know a lot of that will go to build up mental health supports. But on top of that, we're also going to be funding on-the-ground groups, helping with mental wellness causes in communities. We're going to be incentivizing employers to extend mental health coverage and benefits to their employees, or if they have some now, expanding the offering to be better. We want to make sure that we have a 988 suicide prevention hotline nationally so that we can help people. And we've also talked about major investments with 1,000 treatment beds for addiction, 50 community centers, and investments over 5 years for Indigenous mental health and addiction treatment. This is a way the federal government can show leadership alongside the provinces And my time since I was in the military, I've tried to work on mental health, reducing the stigma of these conversations, because mental health is health. And the faster people can get help, the faster they can get on that road to being well. So this is going to be a very important area for both myself and Rebecca, because the wellness of our families and our communities is as important as our economic wellness as a country.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Erin. And it is a struggle for a lot of families. And I don't think there's a single family in Canada that isn't touched by some issues, including my own. I'm going to invite people to use *3 to ask a question. We've got lots of questions coming in, but we certainly want to hear from you. And Erin, we're going to go to our first question from Lauren. And I believe Lauren's in Scottsdale and has a question about something that's very common in Atlantic Canada, which is folks who go back and work in the oil patch in Alberta. Lauren, we're going to open up your line and you can go ahead and ask a question of Erin.
Erin.
Go ahead, Lauren.
How you doing?
I'm well, Lauren. How are you?
How you doing? Good. What are you going to do, Erin, with revamping the oil patch in Alberta? I've worked there 30 years, and now the clown that running our country, he wants to phase that out. Are you going to revamp the oil industry in Canada?
That's a great question, Lauren. And this is something that I think not enough Canadians understand, how not only does the natural resource, the oil and gas success, help Alberta, help Saskatchewan, there's jobs created across the country directly and indirectly, and a lot of folks from Atlantic Canada, Newfoundlanders and Labradorians, Nova Scotians, folks from across the region have also traveled, in some case being away from family, but doing that to work hard to provide for their family. So yes, we're going to try and make sure we have an economic recovery, not just in Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver. We want to see all sectors of our economy and in all regions. So we are going to be showing much more support to make sure investment and jobs can come to our resource sector, including oil and gas. And here's what we're going to do, Lauren. We're going to change the conversation, because every time you take one barrel of Canadian energy or one timber or one rare earth mineral out of circulation that's Canadian, it's going to be replaced by a country that doesn't have the same environmental standards, the same social governance, the same Indigenous partnerships as Canada. So I want to see that ESG, environmental social governance leadership with Canada, and work with producers on their plans to be net zero by 2050. So we have a very ambitious climate change plan to meet our Paris targets and to get the country working again. And we can work with industry, we can use technology, carbon capture and sequestration to make sure we meet our targets, but get people back to work. I like to say, Lauren, 6-7 years ago, there was no national unity crisis in Western Canada. Mr. Trudeau's Ottawa knows best policies, actually holding back the potential of parts of the country that have given our country so much, has caused us to become more divided and less prosperous. Our recovery plan will get this country back on its feet.
Thanks, Erin. Erin, we're going to go to Trina, and I think Trina's in Newfoundland. Trina is a mom to a young adult, a teenager with special needs, and she has a question for you. Go ahead, Trina. You can go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, my question is, I have a son that's actually getting to the point where he's graduating this year. He is a high-functioning autistic child, and moving into his future, we live in a small town in Newfoundland, and the difficulties in these small towns trying to find work, something that these children or young adults with disabilities can actually be involved in is difficult, extremely difficult. And at this point, we are trying to find help and support. And what we're looking for is to see what is the next step that our government is going to take to help these individuals moving into the workforce. If we look at what's happened in the past 15 years, 20 years, of the diagnosis rate for autism and other disabilities, it's been an increase and steady climb. And I don't think that we're prepared for what comes next for these people to be self-sufficient. And there's hardly very many programming that's available for them to find adequate jobs in small towns. So my concern is, where do we go from here, or what, as a government, are you going to be able to offer for young adults with disabilities?
Thank you for the question, Trina, and for sharing your own situation with your son on the spectrum. In fact, one of my first meetings as a brand new backbench MP after I won my by-election was with a woman advocating for children with autism in the adult stage, because the parents want them to have as much self-sufficiency as possible, but also want them to be able to be supported once the school system ends. And that was something that there weren't enough supports in place. So I've always tried to be an advocate within that community as much as I can be. What we've done in Canada's Recovery Plan is we're going to help families living with a disability. So we're going to be doubling the disability benefit of the Canada Workers Benefit. We're going to be making it easier to qualify for the disability tax credit. A lot of families were excluded when Mr. Trudeau tried to make changes a few years ago. And the Registered Disability Savings Plan, if you are in the receipt of the tax credit, you're also going to get that benefit. We also want to make sure that nobody that works part-time as part of their own abilities is worse off than if they didn't work. So we've said we're going to show federal leadership and work with the provinces to make sure there aren't clawbacks for people, even if they're working part-time or partial work, because there's a purpose, there's a wellness for your son in your case to be able to pursue that. And we've met with some incredible employers that have said sometimes their folks with disabilities are their most productive workers. They never miss a shift. They're always there. So if someone's working, they should never be worse off by working than they would have been by not. So we need to make sure that people can live up to that potential. And so we've put a lot of provisions in here for this. And I've talked to our candidates in Long Range Mountains in Newfoundland and Labrador, Carol Anstey. We've got a mom, a business owner, a community booster. She'll make an amazing advocate, and I hope she can receive your support, Trina.
Thanks very much, Trina. So callers, I want to thank you for taking the time to call in tonight and to stay on the line while we called you to be part of this teletown hall this evening. And I'm wondering if I could trouble you for a quick question, a mini poll as it were. We're going to get back to Erin and a question in a second. I want to know if Erin and the Conservative Party can count on your support. If Erin can count on your support, press 1. If you are supporting another party, press 2. And if you're not sure yet, press 3. Press 1 if Erin can count on your support, 2 if you're supporting another party, and 3 if you're just not sure yet. Erin, we're going to go and we're going to talk to Stephen, who's in Moncton, and he has a question on a topic I know from experience is one of your favorite topics, and that has to do with the debt and the deficits that Mr. Trudeau is racking up. So Stephen, over to you. You are open. You can ask your question to Erin.
Thank you. Hi, Erin. My question for you is this. It's one of economic recovery. How will the PCs bail us out of the billions of dollars that Justin Trudeau spent this last year during the pandemic? What plans do you have, and are you going to be taxing us, the middle class, to pay for what Mr. Trudeau has spent over the last year?
Well, thank you, Stephen. The high debt and deficits upset me, you, and clearly the dogs as well. So we have a plan to address that, and it's Canada's Recovery Plan. And let me say off the top, we will not be taxing you to deal with Justin Trudeau's debts and runaway spending. He will, and Jagmeet Singh will, They've already raised taxes and they're going to raise them more. We're going to get our finances into order over the course of the next decade, because up front we're going to help people and help the economy find its footing again, support mental health and priority spending like healthcare, but then have a disciplined approach to get our spending back under control and back to balance. People are shocked when I remind them that Mr. Trudeau is borrowing $424 million a day. That is unsustainable. It is leading to inflation and a cost of living crisis across this country. And Stephen, I'm sure you've seen it with groceries, gas, everything going up, wages flat. So we need to kickstart an economic recovery, and that's what Canada's recovery plan is all about. So the first pillar, 1 million jobs in a year. We want to help targeted sectors like tourism, hospitality that have been particularly hard hit, get other industries, including Lauren and our energy sector out west, manufacturing and other jobs in Atlantic Canada and Ontario back on their footing, secure a better trade access with the United States, make sure we're growing the economy, keeping taxes low, and getting our finances into order. And here's why you know we can do it, Stephen. The Conservatives did this after the 2009 recession, kept taxes low, focused on growing jobs and opportunity. We opened up new trade deals around the world, and we got back to balance because we were disciplined and we delivered. Mr. Trudeau has run deficits every moment he's been Prime Minister. He's never kept a promise on deficits or the economy. He's always letting us down, and he was ramping up spending across the board and raising taxes. So we've got a plan to get back to balance, Stephen, not on the backs of taxpayers, but by being smart, growing our economy, and having a disciplined approach to getting spending down over a reasonable period of time.
Thanks very much. Appreciate that. We're going to go to Edna now. And I think, Edna, it looks that your phone number looks like it's from Cape Breton. I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. And Edna Erin would like to know a little bit more about your point of view on the healthcare system. And she has a tough question for you, actually. So, Edna, your line is open. You can go ahead and ask your question now.
Hi, Erin. Good evening. I'm calling from Sydney, Nova Scotia, part of Cape Breton here. Erin, recently I've read in the news that you support a public-private healthcare system. And I do have some concerns regarding that. But I'm just wondering what your plans are or what your model would be if you were to become Prime Minister. How would you pursue that, changing our healthcare system and putting in a private sector to it? I know that we already have, like, some clinics. I've had an experience myself, like MRIs and things like that. But I just wonder what your intentions are.
Well, I'm glad you asked, Edna, because healthcare is very important across the country, which is why in our plan on the first full day of this election, we launched a plan to save our public health system and to build it up over the next decade, to make it better and to give relief to the front lines, our nurses, our PSWs, our physicians, who are fatigued after 18 months of this pandemic. And provinces need a partner in Ottawa. So we've made a commitment of 6% increases per year, minimum, that will amount to almost $60 billion over 10 years to allow provinces to build out plans for hiring doctors in areas where it isn't serviced, provide more cancer and diagnostic imaging for people, including in Cape Breton and other parts of the province. I know that the new Premier in Nova Scotia, Premier Houston, this is a major initiative that he wants to secure, is building up that healthcare capacity. My mother-in-law from Fall River was a nurse for over 30 years in Halifax doing cancer treatment for folks. So we need to make sure we shore up this system. I support our public and universal system. The one thing I've said is I'm going to give the provinces steady, predictable funding, and we'll work together to make sure that Canadians have faster access, lower wait times, and universal public access. It's been disappointing, Edna, and probably the reason you have this question is Mr. Trudeau was caught very early in the campaign actually doctoring videos to try and say my position was something else. We've locked in our major funding commitment is to healthcare in our recovery plan. The other major commitment is to working families in the lower income levels, because we're going to fight for Canadians, not fight for special interests like Mr. Trudeau has done over the last 6 years. So I want you to know we're going to shore up our healthcare system. And Edna, we've got Eddie Orrell in running for us in Sydney, Victoria. He's been a friend for many years. He would make a tremendous advocate, and I hope he can earn your vote.
And we have Fiona McLeod on the other side of the island too.
Yes.
Excellent. I'm gonna remind folks that if you want to ask a question, you press *3. *3 if you'd like to ask a question, or if you're looking on Facebook, just go ahead and put it in the comments. Erin, this time I'm going to go to Vincent. Vincent, I think, is from Cumberland County, and he is, like you, a veteran, and he has a question. So Vincent, I've opened your line. You can go ahead and you can ask a question.
Hello, Mr. O'Toole.
Hi, Vincent.
Hello. Yes, normally my dad voted Liberal all his life, but when I joined the Royal Canadian Air Force, I had an awakening, so I turned my vote in Nova Scotia to PC, and now I'm turning my vote to the Conservative Party of Canada just because of you.
Oh, well, that's wonderful, Vincent. You know, they say every generation goes a little further than their parents, so you've done well in that regard. And look, we've got an incredible veteran and doctor running for us in Cumberland Colchester, and Dr. Stephen Ellis, who was actually part of the...
I met the guy. He's a great guy.
Yeah, part of the lead on the COVID recovery for your part of Nova Scotia. We never served at the same time, but when he was interested in running, I was so excited because he's got a tremendous track record. He'll be a great voice. Do you have an additional question, Vincent?
Sorry, Erin, we lost Vincent, but his question was, what are you going to do for veterans?
Okay, well, listen, as a veteran myself, I want to make sure we get wait times down, because the longer people wait for service, the more their injuries can often impede their life, hurt their family, cause stress. In fact, our goal is to make sure that people get the support before they even hang up their military uniform and become officially a veteran. We should have all their supports and services in place. We need more support, Vincent, for mental health injuries from service. And I've talked a lot about when I served in Shearwater and the crash of the Swiss Air flight, which was 23 years ago, just a week ago, off of St. Margaret's Bay, Peggy's Cove. That was the first time I ever heard the military use the term operational stress injury. When I became Veterans Minister, those are the most complicated cases because we have to get people supports that help them with their condition, whether it's PTSD or another form of mental health injury. And we're playing catch up in this regard, going back 20 years. So when I was Veterans Minister, we approved service dog and equine therapy trials. We were trying to open more operational stress injury clinics. The faster we can get people help, the faster they can be a great mom or dad, get back to work, be fulfilled, and they avoid a slide into addiction and other problems. So this will be a major area for me, Vincent, and it's kind of exciting. It would be the first military veteran to become Prime Minister since Lester Pearson. I'll also make sure our men and women in uniform get what they need to do their job. So thank you for your service, Vincent, and thank you for your support.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Vincent. Again, folks, it's *3 if you'd like to ask a question of Erin. Any topic that you are interested in, he'll answer the question. As you can see, one thing Mr. O'Toole is very well seasoned with the briefs. He understands exactly what he's talking about. There's no doubt that he understands the material in front of him. Erin, right now we've got somebody from Moncton, Maurice, and Maurice is going to ask his question in French, en français, and I'm going to open the line for you, Maurice, right now. Go ahead, Maurice, we can hear you.
Oui, allô, Lise. Content d'entendre ta voix.
Hello.
Monsieur O'Toole, moi, ce que je voudrais savoir, c'est qu'on n'a pas parlé beaucoup de la question francophone hors Québec. Je sais qu'il y a beaucoup d'autres problèmes qui sont plus importants que peut-être ça, comme le COVID, etc., l'économie. Mais la question des francophones, puis ce qui me concerne surtout, c'est la question des Acadiens ici. Parce que Moncton, on est la seule province bilingue au pays. Et puis, je ne vois pas de progrès dans l'immigration, etc., pour promouvoir l'aspect francophone. Donc, j'aimerais savoir votre opinion là-dessus, parce que durant tous les débats, on n'a jamais parlé de francophone hors Québec. L'université a de la misère à fonctionner à cause de moyens monétaires, etc. Donc, j'aimerais savoir votre opinion là-dessus.
Merci pour la question, Maurice. Et je suis fier de nos deux langues nationales. Et les Acadiens et les communautés minoritaires francophones à travers le pays sont très importants pour notre patrimoine canadien. Et on doit préserver ça. C'est pourquoi dans notre plan pour le rétablissement du Canada, on va faire des investissements sur cet enjeu. On va moderniser la loi sur les langues officielles. Après 6 ans d'inaction par M. Trudeau, on va agir dans mes premiers 100 jours. Et c'était Brian Mulroney, l'ancien premier ministre, qui a modernisé la loi. Je vais donner plus de pouvoir pour le commissaire parce que après les plaintes et le processus pour les plaintes, on doit avoir une approche d'améliorer la situation pour les communautés francophones minoritaires. Aussi, on a un fonds pour les investissements pour les universités postsecondaires pour les communautés minoritaires francophones hors Québec. Nouveau-Brunswick, Ontario, Alberta, Winnipeg, en Manitoba. On a un fonds pour les investissements parce que le bilinguisme, nos communautés francophones, sont une force pour notre pays. Et pour moi, j'ai appris mon français dans les Forces armées canadiennes parce que c'est une institution fédérale et c'est pourquoi aussi je vais appliquer la loi 101 aux entreprises achats fédérales au Québec, mais préserver le français hors Québec aussi. Donc, merci pour la question, Maurice. Et à Moncton, Darlene Smith, on a une candidate extraordinaire.
Thanks, Maurice, and thanks, Erin. Just to let you know, fun fact, I actually did some French immersion when I was in high school in Pointe l'Église, Church Point in Nova Scotia at the University of St. Anne. But obviously, Erin, you have definitely mastered and gone well beyond anything that I ever learned. And it's absolutely wonderful to hear you speak in both official language, given the Acadian connections that we have here in Atlantic Canada. We're going to go to Athena now. Athena is in New Brunswick. And she has a question about something super topical right now because of announcements you made today, Erin. Daycare funding. Athena, I'm opening up your line right now. You can go ahead and you can ask your question.
Thank you very much. Mr. O'Toole, here in New Brunswick, we have a great premier, Premier Higgs. He's wonderful. But he's reluctant to sign on to the federal daycare plan right now because of the way we are in New Brunswick. We're very rural, and the traditional daycares don't really fit a lot of our people because they're shift workers. They could be nurses, they could be waitresses, and their work is outside the regular operating hours of a licensed daycare. So I understand you have more options that you'll provide.
Yeah, yes, Athena, absolutely. And what you've highlighted is one of the things we've always said has to be considered when we're creating a plan for all Canadian families. We need to help all families, and that's going to be our approach. In fact, families in the middle income ranges will be vastly better off with our plan right away, not some people in 5 years with Mr. Trudeau if they are able to work in a 9 to 4, 9 to 5 setting. We need to provide as much support for families to work with the needs they have, whether it's rural, as you said, whether it's shift work, people working in the evenings. They need to be able to help, have help for their situation. The other thing we want to do is help lower income families more. So we're going to have larger approach to cover 75% of the cost with payments throughout the year for families in the lower income levels, because in many, many cases, they are on shift work and they need more assistance. On top of that, Athena, one of our major areas of investing in Canada's recovery plan is doubling the Canada Workers Benefit for folks on the lower income levels to give them an additional boost, because with the cost of living and inflation going up in the last year and a half, 2 years, those people are falling further and further behind. So our childcare approach will be immediate help to all families, letting them make the best decision that meet their needs based on the situation with them and their children, where they live, their shifts, the decisions they have to make. Families need more flexibility, not less. And after 6 years of Mr. Trudeau doing nothing, he's now suggesting in another 5 years he will help some families. That's not our approach. Families need help now.
Thank you very much, Athena, for your great question. Folks, I'm going to turn it back over to you now. I'm wondering if we can do a little mini poll as we did before. Get back to Erin in just a second. I'm wondering again, can Erin and the Conservative Party count on your support? If they can count on your support, please press 1. If you're voting for a different party, please press 2. And if you haven't made up your mind yet, please press 3. Erin, this time we're going to go to Charles. I think Charles is in New Brunswick, and he has a question. Look, there's a ton of questions coming in from seniors tonight about our seniors plan. So Charles has one. But just to let you know, there's a lot of the seniors who are calling in with concerns and questions about affordability as well. So I know we won't get to all of them, but Charles, I'm opening up the line right now. Charles, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, is this for me, is it?
Hi, Charles.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Carl. My name is Carl.
Carl, sorry.
I'm sorry,
What can you do for the seniors from coast to coast who have taken the CERB monies that were offered at the time of the pandemic when everybody was in a panic of probably dying from it, and the Prime Minister that we have in Ottawa there now, who said, if you feel you should have the money, take it, we'll sort it out later, if you feel you qualify. All you had to do is grab your phone and push numbers, and they sent money. They sent the money to me for 6 or 7 months. They had my SIN number, they had my full name and every information. You mean to tell me it took them 6 or 7 months to realize that I shouldn't get it? Now they've cut me off the guaranteed income supplement. I'm a 65-year-old man, single, with 2 8-year-olds that are my children, and I'm raising on my own. And they passed me a check for $626 a month. I can't survive on it. And I'm sure I'm not alone. This has happened coast to coast. So they've stolen the Canada pension from us. Anyway, that's my question is, how can you help? Or can you help?
Thanks, Carl.
Well, thanks for the question, Carl. And this was something that was highlighted, that some of the programs, including the CERB and others, people got conflicting information when they were applying to CRA, and some people were told they qualified, some people didn't and got benefits. We need to work fairly to make sure that people aren't falling behind because of an administrative problem from the government. I think at the beginning of the crisis, we needed to get support out quickly, and we tried to work with the government on that. But if you were being told one thing and it was wrong, people shouldn't be suffering as a result of that. And that's something we want to make sure is a commitment. We are doing a number of things for seniors that are falling behind because of the cost of living crisis. That's why we're doubling the Canada Workers Benefit, because some seniors, as they're transitioning into retirement, are cutting back their work or working part-time. We want to make sure they're keeping more of that. We're going to have a major increase to home accessibility credits of up to $10,000 for seniors, particularly with a disability, to stay in the home. We want more of them to qualify for the disability tax credit and medical expense tax credit. We're also going to make record investments, as I said, in our public health system, and $3 billion that provinces can use to modernize long-term care. That was an area that we found was falling behind, and we need to show federal leadership to help the provinces. We're also going to keep the increase to old age security, which is allowing people to over time catch up to where the cost of living is now. And a big thing for me that I've been talking about for several years, we've got to protect pensions, particularly some company pensions that were at risk when companies went bankrupt or insolvent. We want to make sure that pensioners are protected before corporate executives that are getting payouts or bonuses. So we have a number of plans to try and help you keep more of your own money as a senior. We also have plans to get bills down using more competition and a smarter approach to some of the companies that are larger and might be abusing their big position. And in December, we want to give everyone a break with a Gst Holiday that will be for the month if you purchase something in a bricks and mortar store. So it will help retailers that have had tough year and a half, but also give people a little break. At the end of the day, Carl, we want you to be treated fairly, and we know that there's a cost of living crisis. Mr. Trudeau's spending is making it worse. We want to try and help you.
Thanks very much, Carl. We have Michelle now, Erin, from Newfoundland, and she has a question about difficulties people are finding in finding people to work, actually. So, Michelle, I'm going to open up your line right now, and you are live. Go ahead and ask your question, Michelle.
Good evening, Mr. O'Toole. How are you?
I'm good, thank you, Michelle.
Just have I guess kind of not of a question, but just wondering, we're here in Newfoundland. As you know, Newfoundland's in a kind of difficult time right now. I don't know how to state it. I guess it's just kind of my opinion, I guess. We're middle-class workers. We work 50, 60 hours a week because we're short-staffed. Nobody wants to work here in Newfoundland, obviously, because they're getting handed all this money. But in saying that, I mean, I'm not a greedy person. We don't receive GST because apparently we make too much money. But you have people that's here in Newfoundland, and there's a lot of them, that are on social services, get GST checks. Get the extra money that Trudeau had promised them with kids for 6 and under. But what about the kids that are 6 and up in high school, junior high, elementary school that need more money than kids 6 and under? And these kids that are on social services, these parents getting all this extra money and are still at home, sitting home on their butts, and their kids are being car-tailed from cabs to buses and daycare being paid for. What happens there with them and us? This is kind of my just opinion. I don't know if that makes sense to you or...
No. Listen, you're the exact type of person that I want to make sure you know has a government fighting for you. The fact you're working 50, 60 hours a week to provide for your family, I have respect for that. That's the way I was raised, to work hard and then to try and help others. What we need to do is to make sure you get a break. I want to see upward pressure on wages, which is part of the reason we're raising the Canada Workers Benefit. We want to see people's bills come down, and we have a number of plans to do that. And we do have to transition off of Mr. Trudeau just kicking the ball down the road on programs like the CERB and other things, because there are working opportunities in all parts of the country. In fact, in some parts of the country, there's huge labor shortages. And we keep on just extending payments for people not to work. Mr. Trudeau in the pandemic was spending hundreds of millions of dollars on teenagers not working that were living with their parents. That's not an effective use. That's not a fair use of taxpayers' money. So we want to give working families a break. It's why we're doubling the Canada Workers Benefit. It's why we're providing more supports for families with someone in the family with a disability. 1 in 5 Canadians have that. And we know that a lot of families are falling behind in the cost of living crisis, which is why we want to get people working. We want wages to come up. And as much as possible prices to go down. And with respect to the GST, the GST credit and the rebate I can't speak to changes on that, but we want to give everyone in December a GST holiday, give people that ability to just have a little bit more flexibility in their purchases, but to do it in bricks and mortar stores. That we think everyone needs a break. It's been a tough 18 months for our country. That's one little example of how we want you to get ahead. We have the Dine and Discover, a number of other programs to keep a little bit more money in your pocket and help the hospitality or tourism sector. So we have a lot of really sort of positive measures that we're going to put forward to help the economy get back on track and help you save a little bit of money.
Erin, I got a question here, and it has to do, it's just circling back to a question that we had before. Somebody has said that they thought that they heard you say something about disability pensions in the debate. I'm wondering if you can give us an idea as to what your plans are for disabled Canadians. And I'm gonna open up the line if I can. I saw it a minute ago, and it's my fault that here it is. It's Hope, and she's in St. John, New Brunswick. So Hope, I'm gonna open it up to you.
Hi.
And maybe you can ask. There you are. Hi, Hope. You'll do a much better question.
Hi.
You'll do a much better job than me in answering and asking the question. Go ahead and ask Erin your question, Hope.
Hello, Mr. O'Toole. It's a privilege to chat with you for just a moment.
The privilege is mine, Hope. Thank
Hello.
you. Yes, please.
I was just wondering, I've been very, very stressed out for a good many years over the disability pensions. I saw your debate, and I saw what your lineup is for seniors with disabilities. I've been in and out of the workforce for many years. I was a person born with spastic cerebral palsy, and it's just not allowing me to stand on my feet. So I went on the disability pension, and it's really not enough for myself to live on. And you said that, there was one documentation there. You said you were going to raise the disability pensions from $714 to $1,500, but it said that it was for people on disability that were still working that supplemented their income. Well, that's going to be well, but what about the people who cannot work? And I don't think I get a guaranteed income supplement. I just get the bare necessity of the disability pension.
Yeah, I don't want to ask your age or anything like that. What I quoted is from page 135 in our plan. I refer to our plan a lot because I want to be completely transparent with people. 1 in 5 families have a disability in their home, and we want to provide support for as many families as possible. So one of the ways is we are doubling the disability supplement within the Canada Workers Benefit from $713 to $1,500. That's going to help some that are working that have a disability as well. We also have, we're making it easier to qualify for the disability tax credit and the registered disability savings plan. We're going to also have funding in there for more accessibility in public buildings and workplaces and things like this. But these programs are specifically directed towards people that are working but in lower income levels and have a disability. And as I said earlier in the discussion that I had, I think it was with, might have been with Edna, we want to make sure that there's never someone getting things clawed back from working a little bit. So we want to make sure that work pays, even if it's partial or a contract work. We want to make sure that people are constantly getting ahead. How that works with CPP and guaranteed income supplement based on the age of the person, that sort of thing. This is what we want to work on to make sure that people with a disability get ahead. The biggest reason as a Conservative, I want to see a strong economy. I want to see Lauren, our first questioner, talking about the energy sector coming back, why I want people to get to work. With a strong economy, we can also help folks that have disabilities We can tackle some of the challenges we're facing. All of these things are impossible to do if we don't have a strong economy and if we have debts that get out of control in the next few years. So hope, you know, we need to have hope. And so thank you for talking about your situation. And my goal is to make sure that we can try and help people that are struggling right now. A lot of people are falling underwater with the rising cost of living. That's going to be something we work relentlessly on to try and make sure we're helping as many families as possible.
Thank you, Hope. Erin, we have a question from Donald in Northport, and he's concerned about competitiveness of Canada. So I'm opening up the line for you right now, Donald. Donald from Northport, go
hello?
ahead.
Hello, I would like to know,
Hello.
What is your plan for the support of science and technology in support of our competitive position internationally, since that will have an impact on the whole economy and hence everybody's income in the end? Thanks.
Well, thank you, Donald. This is great because I do a lot of these telephone town halls, and this is a really good one that I get to talk about how much we have in Canada's recovery plan on science, technology, incentivizing first mover advantage in some technologies that will actually help us get emissions down, help us with our environmental goals. So in terms of the hydrogen economy, Canadian leadership on small modular reactors, a form of generating power, electricity that's emission free. We also have, I think, the most exciting innovation platform that we've seen, and we've worked with the Council of Canadian Innovators, we've worked with some of the great creative minds to make sure that we incentivize people to develop intellectual property, patents in Canada, and then commercialize them here. So we're creating something that's known as a patent box, making sure you'll benefit if you develop and maintain that technology here. We're going to encourage the expansion of businesses to stay in Canada by letting them scale up here. So you hear a lot about startups using technologies and innovations, but too often we sell to the Americans or we have people move. I was in Fredericton with our great candidate Andrea Johnson at a little hub in Fredericton for the cybersecurity industry. This is an incredible development that is connected with the university, the military. How can we leverage investments like this to create jobs and innovate? It's exciting, and we have a plan to accelerate that. I worked in the private sector on some of this type of entrepreneurial stuff, Donald, so I'm proud tonight we've been able to talk about resources and the strength of forestry and energy and our manufacturing, but I also think the resources in the heads of our scientists and our kids are just as important as well, and so we have a lot of policies to make sure Canada leads, and I think we can continue to lead and grow in this area.
Thanks very much, and thanks very much, ladies and gentlemen, for calling in tonight for this Teletown Hall. Erin, we've run out of time. We've got lots more questions. I know from Debbie in St. John wanted to ask you about consequences for people who violate ethics rules and how do we improve legislation to punish politicians who commit ethical violations. We don't have time to actually have that answer, but as I pass it back to you for your final thoughts, perhaps maybe you can tell Debbie about one of the pillars, the strong pillars that you have in your plan.
Absolutely, Lisa. The second pillar of our plan are transparency and accountability laws. We've seen Mr. Trudeau break ethics rules many times. He's set the tone as leader of not following the rules. So we're going to have accountability. We're going to have penalties attached, particularly for multiple violations. And we're going to close loopholes in lobbying that we saw, whether the We Charity or SNC Lavalin. The Jody Wilson-Raybould book coming out reminds us of how Mr. Trudeau presents himself as this warm and fuzzy defender of people, and we see behind the curtains that's not how he conducts himself, trying to force her to lie. That's not leadership. So we need to restore faith in politics again, and that's going to be one of our goals. So this has been great, Lisa, and you said I know my files. I watched one of our top cabinet ministers. I learned a lot from you. So you were always someone that knew your files, was willing to defend them in the House, but also have a heart of gold and are a great Canadian. So thank you for your great work hosting tonight. And thank you to everyone. We've had great discussions from across Atlantic Canada. I hope you know that your issues are important to us. It's why we have put forward this plan on day one of an election that Mr. Trudeau shouldn't have called. You know, in Atlantic Canada, we could build a few hospitals for the $600 million Mr. Trudeau is spending on an election that only he wanted in the middle of a pandemic. Too many Canadians have been left behind by his approach. And for Canada's Conservatives, it's time that Atlantic Canada had serious voices in Ottawa again, fighting for opportunity, not people that just pass along Mr. Trudeau's message in the provinces in Atlantic Canada from Ottawa. We need fighters to come to Ottawa for opportunity. So please check out our plan, Canada's Recovery Plan. I know we can secure a brighter future for all Canadians. I want to thank you for hearing me out tonight. I want you to vote for the future, vote to secure the future. Check out our website, our social media. Make sure you vote, and please vote Conservative. Thank you very much. Be well. Thanks, Lisa.